Hello, everybody. My name is Caleb Pearson. I'm one of the financial advisors and owners here at Compass Financial Services. And today we're going to do a brief webinar here about college planning essentials. So we're going to be talking about things like college costs, the inflation that goes along with that, how financial aid works with that, as well as different savings options for college. I'm joined today by Guy Lehman, another financial advisor and owner here at Compass Financial.
Hi, Caleb.
And our guest today as well is Dan Holtkamp with JP Morgan. All right, so like I said, in this webinar, we'll be talking about a handful of things. We're going to try to keep it brief and very high level because there's a lot of details. And really the key with everything that we talk about today is knowing that everybody's situation is different. And there's a lot of planning tools and resources that we can use when it comes to saving for retirement. So it's not a one size fit all or saving for college. It's not a one size fit all thing. So as I mentioned before, these are kind of the high level things that we'll be talking about today. We'll be talking about why college is important, the costs of college and how that has changed over time, financial aid and how that plays into paying for college. And then the big piece that we want to make sure we talk about is saving and investing for college expenses.
And really at the end, I think we're going to get into more planning, some stories and anecdotes about how we see clients using 529s and other things to plan for college, how they do it. We're going to get into Iowa specific things because there's some things going on in the state right now that have changed how 529s are used.
So Dan, why don't you go ahead and get us started out talking about why college is important?
Great. Thanks, Caleb and Guy. It's great to be here. I think it's a very timely event considering May is 529 month. What this page is showing is just how higher education does pay. So there's been a conversation and, over the last few years around, is college worth it? We've got record student loan debt. We've got continuing increasing in colleges and tuition for colleges, but there's also a lot of opportunities for folks not to go to college today. But what this page shows on the left-hand side is in blue, a high school graduate and the income they're going to get. In comparison, in yellow, someone that would graduate with a bachelor's degree. And so, earning, nearly $40,000 more per year, that can have a significant impact on someone's income and total wealth over time. And so despite higher costs in college, getting a degree definitely still has value.
Yeah, and also not only getting a job, but keeping a job. This slide really quickly just says, when unemployment rates are changing, like we saw back in 2020 during COVID, those with college degrees kept their jobs more than those without it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And when we look at the types of degrees you can get, that decision has a major impact and major in quote, and what decision you decide to major in can have a big impact. And so you can see on average, those with a college degree, about 55,000 down there at the bottom. But of course, some of the more technical degrees, whether it's computer science or engineering or even business, slightly higher than maybe some of those there towards the bottom. And so the decision you make does have a big impact. And I think the reason this matters is over time, while inflation is the highest we've seen in nearly 40 years, college inflation has been significantly higher than really every other major category over the last 30 years. You can see here at the bottom, inflation in college has averaged nearly 6% per year, well above gas, groceries, and housing. And so at the end of the day, we believe it's important to not just save for college, but invest for college and finding ways to make above inflation returns for this huge decision that you're going to make for your family.
Another thing I want to point out here is the community college option. This is a planning idea when it comes to looking at what your college degree is going to be or what your children's college degree is going to be, is not to rule out the idea of doing community college, whether it's just for a year or two to get some of the general education courses done, or even if it is just to get your whole degree. The cost of community college is So you can save up to 40% by attending 2 years of community college versus going right away to an in-state college or a private school. So that's something that we see a lot of people choose to do or encourage their children to do is attend community college to save.
So kind of what you're hearing is the kids' decisions have a big outcome on the cost of college. From number one, the grades that they get in high school, right? Because grades pays for a lot of college. Number two, which major they choose. And number three, where they go, somewhere in state, somewhere out of state, junior college, then 4-year. So again, kids have a big decision to make here, and it affects the cost of college.
Yeah, and I think, you mentioned community college, but there's also many high schools that are offering AP courses that if you can get some of those college credits, paid for in high school, that can go a long way to, saving some costs when you think about college.
Another thing to point out as far as college goes is planning for more than 4 years. This slide shows that only 47% of students graduate within 4 years, which is staggering for me. I thought that it would be a lot higher than that, and 64% within 6 years. So knowing that not all kids will go for 4 years and maybe more than that and maybe less than that. And so these are things that, especially if you're starting to save and invest for college with a newborn, you have no idea what's going to happen. And so just knowing that there's flexibility and there's changes that you may need to adapt throughout the years as you're planning for this.
So what this page is looking at is helping look at realistic expectations versus reality. So what people think they're going to do to pay for school versus reality. And so, many people are excited about their kids' prospects in sports, but, less than 0.5% of college-born kids or college kids actually get a full ride scholarship for athletics. When you look at, how they're going to pay for it on the left-hand side, you can see that almost 40% of Americans expect to get some sort of scholarship or grant or, gifts from family, and expect to pay for college with about 37% from their income or investments. In reality, you can see on the right-hand side, it's much more around your income and the investments driven by you. So bottom line, you're going to have more of an out-of-pocket cost and a lot less that you're going to get, unfortunately, in scholarships and grants that you might think. And so what we've kind of talked about here is with the higher cost, it's more up to you than ever to help fund these higher costs for colleges.
Yeah, and we'll get to that here in a minute as far as investment strategies and kind of how you can plan for that, knowing that 54% of the college costs will likely fall in your lap. But really briefly, I want to talk quickly about financial aid and how that works, because we get questions about this all the time. And questions like, if I do put a bunch of money into a 529 account or into a Coverdell account or just our general investments, how does that affect financial aid and how much I can get or how much my student can get? Well, what this shows you, I'm not going to go into detail on all of this, but only 5.64% of the parents' assets, including 529 plans, investments, and savings, are included in their calculation for the EFC that you see there. And so it doesn't play a huge role in how much student aid you get. What really plays a big role is your income. So you see between 22 and 40%, 47% of the parents' income, and then students' income as well. 50% of that is what they look at when they're calculating that EFC amount. So it's not as big of a contributor as a lot of people think. The income is really the key component that they look at. And just a quick FYI, they look at your income from 2 years prior from when you're applying for that student aid. So I'm not going to spend time on this chart, but if you want to kind of do an estimate on what your EFC amount could be, you can screenshot this or pause the video and take a look. There's also online calculators, which you can look at as well.
Let's go maybe one more. We've all seen in the headlines, record student loan debt and the impact that's having on, the younger generation. And I think this shows it right here that when asked, 42% of young people are saying they're, not able to pay off other loans because of their, high student loan debt, or they're putting off maybe having a baby or traveling or even buying a new home. And so the point here is if we can have a plan and have a plan early for how we're going to pay and fund college, that can have a huge impact on someone's life, coming out of college.
So I'd add to that, and that's one of the things we see in practice here with parents, is the best plans are when people agree on something. And we're not saying that you should be trying to pay for 100% of college. We're not saying even that you should pay for any of college. But the point is, agree on what you're shooting for with college savings. If you're shooting to pay for half of your students' college someday, then you can back into that number. And you can communicate with that child, hey, here's mom and dad's plan. We're going to do enough to try to get you halfway through. The rest is on you. So it doesn't matter what you're shooting for. Having agreement and communicating that to the child is the key step that we've seen generate success.
And what we've kind of talked about already is there's different levels of college costs. And so maybe it's not a 50% of college costs because you don't know what that's going to be. Maybe it's, we want to have $50,000 saved by the time our child is 18. Then you can really back into that number and then decide which planning or which investment vehicles to utilize for that goal. And so we'll kind of talk next about some college. A couple of these are college specific or education specific savings accounts, but these are more accounts that your child will have, their name on or have a say in how they use that money when it comes to college or other expenses down the road. So the three big ones that you see here on the screen are 529 plans, which we've kind of mentioned before, UGMA or UTMA accounts, and then Coverdell education savings accounts. And you can see, there's pros and cons to each. And so, again, we won't spend a ton of time on this slide as well. You can kind of see those pieces there, but 529 plans are a very popular vehicle when it comes to saving for retirement. So, Guy, you want to talk about some of the benefits of 529s?
Well, I will say practically, custodial accounts and Coverdell savings accounts have minimal usability.
Less flexibility.
They're less flexible. 529s were specifically designed for the environment we're in. And the beautiful thing about 529s is, at least in Iowa, you get a tax deduction on your contributions. There's tax deferred growth. And then when you take it out, as long as it's a qualified educational expense, it's a tax-free withdrawals. So it's kind of like the trifecta of efficiency. So these are plans designed specifically for educational savings, and they have pretty high limits that you can add every year to really build up a substantial base.
Yeah, if I could add to that, I think one of the nice things about 529 specifically is the account owner maintains control. So one of the things we often hear is, what if my child does get that athletic scholarship? Or what if they choose not to go to college? I put all that money in for nothing. That's not necessarily the case. With 529s, there's different rules around giving that to a different child, maybe giving that to a niece or nephew, or even a grandchild one day. Or maybe you personally decide you want to go back to a post-secondary degree to get a master's or an MBA. You can always change control or change who that beneficiary is at any time, where a custodial account at age of majority, when you say that person's going to get that money, they're going to get that money. A 529, if you decide to start that for one of your child, you always maintain control of that.
And then another thing, as far as the state of Iowa goes, and the tax deduction there, that is per beneficiary, so per kid, per parent. So if you have 2 kids and 2 parents, you could open up 4 separate accounts and get it's $3,785 per, and so $15,140 total in the state of Iowa tax deduction. That's not the maximum amount that you can put in. You can see here, those limits are a lot higher than that. But if you want the state tax deduction, those are the specific numbers for 2023. That goes up typically every year by a little bit.
And just a clarification there, if you live in Iowa, you have to have an Iowa 529 and contribute to that Iowa 529 to get that state tax deduction. That's on the way in. However, we also get the question, well, can my kid go to school outside of Iowa? And the answer is yes. When you're distributing money out of that plan, it doesn't matter where the kid's going. That money can go anywhere.
As long as it's an accredited university. There are some that are not, but for the most part, almost every true university or college you can use it for. But there's a few niche colleges that are popping up in certain markets that you can't.
All right, good.
The good news, if you're on this webinar, you're probably taking college seriously, or you're taking investing or saving for college seriously. You'll see down at the bottom that 29% of Americans have no plan at all for saving for college. And so I think the point of this isn't to say you have to cover all your college costs for your kids or your grandkids or how you do it, but giving you the options. At the top, most Americans still today save for college with savings, whether it's a savings account, their checking account. And as we've been talking about, there's a lot of other options out there that might be better suited for college education.
So this is a good slide, just talking about the earlier you start, the better. I think most people kind of understand that concept, but you can look here. If you start saving $100 a month, you see starting at the left there, the blue graph, a 6% return. $100 a month turns into $38,281 by the time they get to the age of where they're going to school. So if you wait until they're 6, that number drops significantly to $20,896. And then if you start right before they become teenagers, even, once they're in high school, that number goes down quite a bit as well. So start early if you can. If your goal is to save and put money away and invest it for school specifically, the earlier you start, the better off you could be.
So in addition to starting early, we also think it's important to think about a tax efficient way of investing. And that's what a 529 plan can do for you. On the yellow bar, this is showing just investing in a UCMA or UGMA account that each year you're going to pay taxes on those earnings or growth. On the left-hand side is investing in a 529. As Guy mentioned earlier, 529s, you do not pay taxes each year on the growth. And when it comes out, as long as it's used for a qualified distribution, which includes not just tuition and fees, but includes room and board. That could even mean living off campus in an apartment. It can include buying a new Apple computer for your kid, books and supplies. So there's a lot of things and flexibility that 529 plans can offer to be used for college and other things. So having that tax deferred growth and the flexibility to use it for a lot of things can make a big difference when you're saving and investing for college.
This kind of explains all of those things again in one page here. One other thing that I like to point out, and you can see it on the right hand there in the purple, is there's no income limits when it comes to 529 plans and how much you can contribute. Some other types of savings accounts like that, with your kid involved, there are some income limits. Also, there's no age limits on beneficiaries or people who are contributing, whereas with like the Coverdell or the UGMA account, once the kids reach a certain age, then that money is theirs and they get to pick, what they want to use that money for.
In addition to that, for some of the high income earners on the call that may not be able to do a Roth IRA and get the tax deduction there, as Caleb said, 529s have no income limit. So it's one way from a tax planning perspective to get a nice deduction.
I want to reiterate something that I think is important is typically the parent or sometimes a grandparent is the owner of the account. And they get to choose one beneficiary per account for this money to go towards. So for instance, if you're a parent and you have one child, you get to name that person as beneficiary. but the owner retains control. The owner has the ability to change who the beneficiary is over time. So again, that's under that control and flexibility, is the account owner, not the beneficiary, is in control of this account.
And that owner is the one that gets the tax benefit.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Dan covered this a little bit as far as 529 plans and what you can use the money for. This has evolved over time and become, again, more and more flexible. One thing I want to point out when it comes to how do you prove that you're using this money for education expenses, and what if I don't use the money for education expenses? The IRS they're not requiring you to show every single year what you spent on education, how much came out of the 529 plan, but you want to keep track of that and keep it as close as possible, because if you ever did get audited by the IRS, they're going to come back and say, I see you took $20,000 out of a 529 plan in 2019. Show us the educational expenses that align with that. And so just keeping record of what expenses there are, what you spent it on, when it was spent, making sure that lines up with how much you're taking out of the 529, just in case you were to get audited someday.
Real life experience that those audits do happen. We know somebody that has been audited by the IRS for their 529, and they simply had to prove kind of what Caleb said, that, hey, we took this money out of the 529. Here's the proof that it was an educational expense. Yep.
And some things that have changed over the years that some of you may not have noticed or heard about, but you can now use 529 plans for K through 12 tuition or costs. You can see their apprenticeship programs, and even to use it to pay off loans in some cases.
To 29, I think.
29 is the next one, okay?
So I'll cover this one. This one shows don't pay for college with retirement funds. Again, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but we often hear people that maybe are behind in their college savings that use their IRAs or their 401ks to pay for their kids' college. So every dollar taken from a 401k or IRA to pay for college can mean a lot less for retirement due to the lost years of investment earnings and compounding. So for example, in the middle, if you withdraw $25,000 to pay for college now, that could result in nearly $80,000 less for retirement in 20 years. And that's because of that growth over that next 20 years that $25,000 withdrawal would take. In addition, there are potential tax consequences from taking money from a 401k or IRA, maybe even penalties or reduced financial aid in some certain situations. So again, I think it's really important to have that conversation with your financial planner to make sure you're pulling those monies from the right situation. So the next page is showing how taking money for taking money from your 529 for K-12. And this was a recent change. But as Guy and Caleb talked about earlier, one of the real benefits to the 529 is that investment growth over time. And while you can fund a 529 and immediately take that out to pay for your parochial school or your private school tuition, you miss that benefit of that growth over time. Just like if you took money from a retirement account, you'd miss that growth. And so, we think if you're going to use $529 to pay for K-12 education, potentially even having separate accounts, to have one account be for your K-12, one account be your long-term growth, and you can even set what type of investments you want, because if you're using it on an annual basis for K-12, it might need to be in a more conservative account like a money market or a stable value strategy. And if it's for longer term for college, maybe 10 plus years out, you've got time to ride out the ups and downs of the market to ultimately, hopefully achieve higher returns with those investments over time.
Yeah, Dan, let me give you a little color on that, because we see that fairly often and this is where a couple can each have accounts for their kids. So for instance, we have a couple got 2 kids. The husband will open 2 529 accounts and be contributing them for the two kids' college costs way down the road that you're looking at here, the green line. And then we have the spouse that will open up 2 accounts to filter money through those accounts to pay for current expenses in K-12 private school, and simply use it as a conduit to get the state tax deduction for 2 kids every year. So that it's a bit of a tax move, but we see that as a real viable options. Now, another thing that we haven't mentioned, it was on one of those financing screens, but what if a grandparent has a 529? That's a fairly common thing that we come across. The first thing is any money in a grandparent's 529 has nothing to do with college financing costs. It's not included in that ERC calculation. It's not included in anything. It's kind of off the grid, so to say, or so to speak. And secondly, the grandparent as the owner has all sorts of flexibility again about how to dispense that money over time. So it really, it would behoove you if your parents have 529s for your kids to be working in concert with them when the time comes to distribute that money.
And one last point on the K-12 529s. There's not every state allows that. So you want to be careful if you maybe are considering moving down the road. Not every state allows you to use $529 for K-12 education. So,
but at this point, Iowa does.
Iowa does, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now there is, from what I understand, a $10,000 annual limit on that K-12 withdrawal.
Correct.
Yep. All right. Well, I think this is probably a good time here to start wrapping things up. You know, Dan's got this slide here.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, be a good wrap up.
Yep. So this slide gives you some websites that are good to go in if you wanted to dig deeper on some of the things we've talked about today. The federal financial aid websites there. You know, I mentioned earlier, if you want to go estimate about how much you might be eligible for in financial aid for your kids, so you can kind of back into the amount that you may need to pay yourself. Those websites are a good place to go for that. More specifics on 529 college savings plans. Those websites are there. And then other, you know, general grant and scholarship type websites. There's one question that I also get quite a bit that I wanted to just bring up right now. We've talked a lot about saving for college, putting money into a 529 account. The one question that pops up is, what if my child doesn't go to college? Or what if my child gets a full ride scholarship to college? And we don't want to use that money for another child, or we don't want to change the beneficiary. What are the consequences for that? Well, because this is a tax deferred account, basically your only cost or what you have to pay is if the money's not used at all for educational purposes, you're going to be taxed on the earnings portion of the account when it gets taken out. So you can withdraw that money and just pay taxes on the earnings, plus a 10% penalty if it's not used for anything educational. If your kid does get a scholarship, you can take all that money out, pay taxes on the earnings, and they waive that 10% penalty. So, but typically, like we kind of mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility with that. So if you want to change the beneficiary to another kid, if you want to keep the account open and change it beneficiary to yourself, if you want to go back to school or get something, or if you want to wait for grandkids and then change the beneficiary to your grandkids down the road, there's some flexibility there. And the other thing that is kind of a new rule that came out here with the most recent Secure Act 2.0 is the ability to convert that 529 account into a Roth IRA for the beneficiary. Now that's a very new rule, and there's still some figuring out to do that they need to do to figure out, you know, what the rules are for that and when you can do it and when can't you do it and everything. So I just wanted to plant that seed though. So if you do have a 529 account that's been open for an extended period of time, that may be an option down the road to consider.
One of the things we see people come in and really rub their hands. Oh no, what are we going to do about college? And how is it going to work? And is it going to work? And routinely, our experience is that it seems to work out somehow. It always seems to work out somehow. So our encouragement is relax. It's going to work somehow, right? It's been said, you can borrow for college, but you can't borrow for retirement. So don't put your future at risk trying to get your kids through college, because there's a mechanism financially for them to get through college, even if it means coming out the other side with some debt. And a lot of parents say, we want our kids to have some skin in the game. So we want them to have a little debt. And I've even heard a lot of employers and hiring supervisors say, we love kids with a little debt because they're motivated. So my encouragement to you, it's going to work out somehow. But what I would say is have a plan, make an agreement, get some, start working somehow, get going, even if it's $25 a month. Whatever you do now to spread that concentrated cost of college over as many years as possible is going to benefit you in the end. And you can contribute to these plans all the way through your kids being in college. So even as a senior, you can put in 37, 85 and get a tax deduction for it this year, then turn around and pay it out to the tuition. So there's a lot of options, a lot of flexibility. We love to walk with people through this whole discussion and stage of life. And we would love to hear from you if you have questions. We're at compassiowa.com, and we'd love to hear you if you have something on your mind.
Great. Well, thank you all for joining today. Again, if you have questions, you can reach out to us on our website at compassiowa.com or give us a call at our office here, 515-327-1020.
Thanks for coming by, Dan.
Thank you.